All right, this is timing belt replacement on 2000 to 2003 Volkswagen TDI ALH. This can be for the Jetta, Golf, also I believe the Beetle. Might be a little different on this side, but we got our parts kit here. Shout out to Cascade German for getting all this stuff to me shipped quickly. Got the deluxe kit with corresponding engine mount bolts and just all the extra stuff we need, including serpentine belt. All right, so first we're gonna start up by just jacking the car up from the driver's side, getting the coolant drained out, and then we'll start taking some of this stuff off so we can get to the belt. I already pulled the timing cover off here. It just has 1, 2, 3, 4 clips on it. They're located here, 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 and there's one pretty deep down there if you can kind of see it right there. So yeah, let's get the coolant drained out, and I'll show you guys where the drain's at. Make sure you pop this cap off. It will make it come out a lot easier. All right, under the car, here's our coolant drain. So make sure you have a pretty big drain pan for it. It just loosens up to the left, and then you kind of pull it out. And it should start draining. Make sure you open up this cap to let the vacuum out. And here it comes. This car does have the incorrect coolant in it. You can't tell it's green. So we're gonna get that all flushed out of there. This will not drain all the coolant. Keep in mind, only the stuff that's in the radiator and before the thermostat. Once we take the water pump out, it'll drain the rest, so it's still gonna kind of be a pretty big mess, but this will mitigate it a bit. All right, while that's draining, you can go ahead and pull this intercooler pipe off. So clamp here. This might look a little different on yours, but there's a hose clamp here, and then there's a clamp down here. I have a just a normal style clamp on there, not a spring clamp. It's a lot easier. I recommend definitely replacing that. It's a lot easier to come on and off. Once you get those out, make sure you pop this harness out and be mindful of these fuel lines, but it does come out of here without taking this off. So yeah, I'll pull that off and get back to you guys. Just turn it left, and then it should just pull right out. It's a little bit tighter. So be careful not to stress the fuel lines too much. And then it is a good idea to go ahead and plug your intake up here, and if you really want to, you can plug this up just so no dirt or nothing gets in those. Next, we're going to jack up the side, get this wheel pulled off. I believe there's 17 mils, and then I'll show you. My splash guard is missing, but it's a good idea to pull the splash guard off once the wheel is off. Quick note, make sure you have your e-brake applied or chalk your wheels, because lifting up the front end, if you're in gear, it still will not hold itself. So yeah, just keep it from rolling. Once the wheel's off, my splash guard is obviously a bit broke, but you get the idea. You want to pull it out. Should be just some, I think these are maybe T25 or something. There's probably a couple of them. And then this will give you access to the crank serpentine belt, which needs to come off. And then I believe this pipe has to come off as well. So we will now disconnect the battery. I did forget about that. Just a good practice when we're working on anything on the vehicle, even though we're not doing anything electric. But we will be unplugging some stuff and possibly could run into grounds. So always a good practice to disconnect the battery. So it's just one 10 mil, this one here, and just lay the ground off to the side. For this intercooler pipe, it should be just one 10 mil here for the mounting bracket. And then you can use pliers for this clamp here on the front side. You get the idea. And then this bank clamp, if you can see it, this here has to come out. just like that. And then it should pop out. There's an O-ring in there. Make sure you keep that clean when you install it. Also put a little bit of grease on it. Yeah, you can take either one of these off, it doesn't really matter. Pliers, smooth over, pull it out. Get back to you guys. Again, it's up to you. Put rags in here if you want. Keep them clean, keep dirt out of there. Yes. Next, we'll go ahead and start pulling some stuff off up here. So we got this coolant ball. Should be just a couple of Phillips heads in there. One there, one there. Go ahead and unplug it as well. Tab pushes down. There's this, and then underneath is this line here. Next to it, this is usually easier if you pull it all up, and then you can get the clamp off. Be mindful as these get old. These nipples, plastic nipples, do like to break off, so just careful when you're twisting on it. So I'm gonna pull this off. Get back to you guys. Definitely a good time to go ahead and clean this out or replace it. These are nipples I like to break off. Yeah, I would definitely recommend cleaning these out. This one's nasty because they had the wrong coolant in it. But next, take off this power steering reservoir. I am going to try and take it off and move it out of the way and not have to drain the fluid. Possibly might later, depending on how that goes. But I believe it's just this one Allen here. I believe that's a 5mm Allen. So, yep, I'll pull that off. Next, get the serpentine belt off. We have a 16mm wrench. And this method works great for this, double wrenching. Watch your knuckles. But just move it. Basically, you're tightening this to the right, and it will release your belt tension. And then you can grab the belt, pull it right off. It does help to try your best to pull it off the top. And now is a great time to inspect your serpentine belt. So you want to look for any cracking, any rubbing. Kind of see the rub line on this one a little bit. That's just from the tensioner though. But I'm replacing this anyways, so. Next, for the timing, there are special tools you can get. I believe they are the cam holding tool, which holds this pulley as you torque it down once you tighten it back up. There's also a pin lock for the injection pump, which is not needed because a drill bit will fit in there. I will tell you what size once we get it at top dead center and everything. The one tool that I wouldn't really recommend is for the tensioner. There's two holes on the side of the tensioner. Mine's mangled, but you can see here and here. The tool just kind of goes in there, and that's how you tension the belt, as you pull the tool to the right. And I believe there's also a crank holding tool as well. And then there's also a cam holding tool, which you take this vacuum pump off, basically slide a plate into the cam, and that locks it at top dead center. But I will show you guys a way to foolproof do it as long as your engine is timed beforehand. I'll show you guys how to do that, how to mark the cam, lock this in place, and maybe some tricks on how to tighten this down without having to use the special tools. This one you can buy snap ring pliers, but it's a little bit tricky. They like to snap the tips off them. Sometimes you can grab it with a vice grips or bigger pliers and tension it that way. But yeah, I guess each to their own. If you guys want to buy the toolkit, you can go right ahead. It's a little bit expensive. But next, we will be taking this valve cover off. PSA for the valve cover bolts from the factory. They are 5mm hexes. There's 3 in front, 4 in the back. Mine are upgraded to 10mm just because these really like to strip out. I recommend taking your EGR off or your delete pipe off just to get to this last one. You want to get on them as straight as you can. They do strip out very easy. They do happen to strip out. You can get a 5.5mm Allen key and hit it on there with a hammer, and then just try to get them out. Try to get something to grip into it. You can also use Torx. But yeah, they shouldn't be crazy tight, but they do like to corrode, especially in the back. So pull this valve cover off. Obviously pull this out. I have a catch can set up, but you should just be able to click this like this, pull it straight out. This thing just pulls straight up, and then the valve cover should pop off. It is recommended to take these bolts off from the middle out, hence to not warp the valve cover. Also, keep in mind the gasket on this valve cover is basically part of the valve cover itself. So you can replace the whole valve cover, or just use some RTV. Also, when taking it off, can be stuck. There is a pry point here you can use. Just be mindful because it is aluminum, and you also don't want to pry on your gasket area, so you don't want to score that up. So just pry it gently. It should lift a little bit. Mine has RTV, so it's a little bit more stuck than some other people's will be. But yeah, just pry it, work it loose. Once you pop it up enough, it should come up. Kind of do it with one hand. Pull this off and get back. Okay, at this point, we got the valve cover off. If you have the cam locking plate, you will just take this vacuum pump off. Leave it some bolts here, and then there's some around it. Make sure you place a seal on that if you do, and then there's also a line that goes to the brake booster. PSA, these leak vacuum here, so if you haven't done the JB Weld mod yet, I highly recommend searching it up. So I'll show you guys how to set the engine to top dead center, and how to lock the injection pump, and then how to mark your cam and all that. So pretty much, there is a plug on the driver's side of the car in the transmission bell housing. So if you look down in here, there's a plug here, a rubber plug, right on the left. So I'll get a camera and go down in there and show you guys. Here's the plug in the transmission bell housing. It's just rubber. Just grab it, pull it up. Okay, now we will rotate the engine using a 19 mil. I believe it's a 19. Let me check. 19 mil 12 point. It is a good idea to rotate it with the crank and not the cam. And also it rotates clockwise, so it's always a good practice to rotate the engine the correct way that it turns. We will be going to top dead center. So this is cylinder 1. These cam lobes should be pointing up or close to up. And then if you have the cam lock plate, obviously it'll go horizontal. Here's our crank, or sorry, our flywheel. There will be a mark that will come around, and it will line up with this tooth here. And then for the injection pump, there will be a locking hole on the, I believe it's the top of it. I'll grab the drill bit for that and rotate it top dead center and show you. All right, it is a 15/16 drill bit. It will go in this top hole of the injection pump. I believe. In this top hole here. It is not fitting. It's not perfectly lined up. Here is the mark on the crank. You can see it right there. And then to keep your cam in time, it is a good idea to make 2 marks, the pay marker. One here where the cam meets the hold down cap, and then also one here if you do not have the cam locking tool. We just have no way to hold it now, but this is a good way to just make sure the cam is perfectly top dead center, just because we will be removing this and there's no keyway. With this, it's just a push fit. Also, you can mark your case with your gears. It does help. The cam one is not necessary because this gear can obviously spin on here. But yeah, so we are now at top dead center. Definitely recommend getting this locked in. If you can't get that in, go ahead and loosen the 3 13 mils on here, and then you can move it with the 22 mil just a little bit, whatever way you need to go to be able to lock that pump in. So yeah, make sure you mark your top dead center. Very important. This is an interference engine. Get your crank as close as you can, top dead center. Okay, 15/64 drill bit in that top hole. Make sure it goes all the way through. You might have to grab this shaft here with a 22 mil and just move it ever so slightly. If these 3 bolts are loose, it can move freely without spinning your engine. Now we will get 6mm Allen and take these 4 off with a crankshaft dampener. Keep in mind they can be pretty tight and they like to round off, so recommend using an impact and making sure that they're pushed all the way on. If they do strip, you can hammer Torx bits into them and do it that way. But yep, just get those off. Also inspect this rubber around here. Make sure it's not cracked or missing. This absorbs your vibrations from your crankshaft, so just inspect it for now. Leave that middle bolt in, it does not need to come out. Now that those off, you can go ahead and pull this dampener right off. That's what it looks like. I don't think there's a certain way it has to go on. Actually, there is. There's a timing mark here, which has to point up. So there's your 2 marks that have to go up when we reinstall it. Here is your crank sprocket. And we're gonna take these 10mm off. There's 2 here, and 2 more there, 1 more there. I believe this bottom cover comes off first, and then the rest can come out after, so let's pull these 4 that we can get to now. These 4 bolts are out. This cover can come down. Then we will loosen this 19mm here in the cam. Trick for that, use a crowbar and put it here, and then you can apply tension on this for torquing it and also loosening it. Good time to check our marks. We're a little off there. Pretty close on these. And then our injection pump, it is locked, so it cannot move. As you go through the process, just keep checking them, especially if you're not locking them. I believe this might also have a mark on it somewhere, but it's a little bit hard to see. So. Next, I believe we have to support the engine here with a jack, so make sure you have wood and a jack so you don't damage your oil pan, and support the engine under the oil pan or even here on this compressor, because we will be taking the passenger motor mount off to access time belts. So I'll get a jack and get back to you. Next, we will be removing the motor mount once we have our jack. Kind of want it close to the passenger side. Put some wood on there, just a little bit of pressure on it. And then we've got 1 bolt here and 1 bolt here. Those are 16mm. And then 1 bolt there and here. Those are 18s. So let's remove those. I need that extension. However it went. Also the 13mm here has to come out. You will need to remove this plate. There's another 13mm right there. With all these loose, just keep in mind your engine will drop down just a little bit, so make sure your jack's under there. Pull our bolts out. Might have to take his power steering. Those are off, but this mount is now loose. So all we have to do is get it out of here. Make sure that you possibly need new bolts for these because they are torqued to yield. So stretch bolts, some of them. Might be a smart idea to break them loose with a pretty long breaker bar, as I had to. They're pretty tight. So let me see if I can fish this out here without taking any of this off. I'll let you guys know. Very much possible. Also inspect your motor mounts while you have them out. For play, you should have a little bit. They shouldn't be ripped or nothing. These are expensive, so I'm throwing them back in. Next, we want to also just be mindful of all these hoses and wires. You don't want to be gripping on too hard, as Volkswagens are known for pretty weak wiring harnesses. So there is bolts in these holes So there's one here, and I believe there's 2 more on the bottom. Let's see here. Okay, well, there's one here. I believe there's 3, but I'll pull it out and let you guys know where they're at. Remember, now we can move the engine up and down with the jack to get to them. So let's do that. And then once we get that off, we can pull that last timing cover off. All right, here's our bracket. We got 1 bolt here, 1 there, and 1 there. It sits just like this. These are the bolts. These are all 16 mils. I believe the long one goes here. Yes, the long one goes in this hole. And then the other 2 are the same length. They go here. You have to raise the engine quite a bit to get them to come out. Try not to stress it too much. Yes, so now we can pull this bottom time, or this top timing cover off. It should be just 1 10 mil here. So that's great. Right here. Here's the top cover. Those are those 2 bolts from before. Okay. And now we are pretty much open. So we've got our rollers, 1 here, 1 down there. There's our water pump. Another roller here. And then this one is our tensioner. So one more quick check before we loosen the tensioner bolts. Make sure we're at top dead center still here. Pretty close. We can always move this too, just a little bit once we get the belt back on, but we want to be super close as we can. So this is a 13 mil for that tensioner bolt. I got a mess going on here. Jeez. So it's gonna be a 13 mil. You want this ratchet. Okay. We'll loosen this. Recommend to not reuse them, but once you loosen this, the belt will untension itself. Wouldn't take it off quite yet. On the tensioners, we go to tension them back down. There is going to be, first off, this is going to fit into a groove on the block itself. And for tensioning these, this mark here on the right side will line up with this open mark here with the special tool, snap ring pliers or regular pliers, whatever you have. This will move. That's what applies tension on your belt. So with this removed, or sorry, loosened, we can go ahead and pop the belt off. So if you want, you can either cut it or pry it off. But what I recommend doing is popping this cam gear off of the cam itself. And to do that, all you need is a dead blow hammer or a regular hammer. If you can't get yours to come off, you can use a puller. But people do drill a hole, in this case here, and then just use a punch. But I will show you guys a trick for this to not have to drill a hole. Okay, so to pop the cam gear off, make sure your bolt's loose, but not all the way out. And just get a hammer, just give it a couple taps, not too hard. As you can see, it's not loose, and you can slide it off. Make sure your cam stays at top dead center when you do that. They do like to move just a little bit, so I just can't trust it enough. Keep it at top dead center as much as you can, because you don't want to get way off and then, you know, try to crank it over, have piston tit valves, even when it's not starting, you're trying to do a timing job. So once that is off, you can remove this bolt all the way, and you can go ahead and mark your belt if you would like to. Some people do it that way. You can count teeth. But this belt goes around a lot of stuff. So for me, I'm just going to pop it off and put it back on and make sure everything's at top dead center. So once your cam gear is loose, the belt is super easy to take off because obviously your gear will just fall right off like that. Then just remove your belt off of everything. It's a little hard to fish around this tensioner up here, but once you get off everything, it does become a bit easier. Get it off down there. Oh, these jobs are really not one-hand jobs. Okay, here is our timing belt. So our recommended service interval for these, I believe, is around 90,000 miles. This one is unknown history, hence why I'm replacing it. Some of these belts do have date codes on them. I'm trying to find it for you guys here. Here it is. So this might be a part number or a date code. I'm not really sure. So next, we're just going to take all these pulleys off. So we got one roller here, 13 mil, the tensioner, 13 mil, this pulley, idler pulley, 13 mil, and then this big one is a 16 mil. In Canada, okay. Now there's 4 10 mil bolts. Actually, I think 3 10 mil bolts for the water pump. Pull them out, and then I'll show you how to break it loose. Now once your 4 bolts are out, or 3 bolts are out of the water pump, you can get a pry bar, or in this case a crowbar, and get behind the gear. And just pry it as best you can without wrecking anything. Have your drain pan prepared, it's gonna make a mess.
Yikes.
You don't do it right unless you eat it a little bit. Okay. Yep. Alright, now I'm replacing this cam seal because mine is leaking. So I believe we can pull it off without pulling this cover. We just need to loosen these 2 13 mil nuts. Very important, do not drop the nuts into the oil return passages. Very important. So get a rag or something to kind of block them, and then loosen these 2. And then once they're out, pull them out here real quick. This cam cap should loosen off. You should be able to get to the seal. Here's the cam cap. You can just grab it carefully with a pair of pliers and pull it straight up and off. Be mindful, our paint mark is still on here, so we don't want to wipe that off. Put that aside, and our cam seal is here. And it should just fall right out. Should be able to take the cam seal out the front, just like that. And then we'll clean up these surfaces on here. Make sure there's no oil. And then installing our new one, I'll show you the process for that. Okay, to install our cam seal, we are just going to put a little bit of RTV or silicone on the outside, just a real thin layer. And then you can grease the inside of it or grease the shafts here a little bit. Make sure you wipe this off after you install it. You want to push it flush with this silver edge here of the head itself. So let's install it. Shouldn't need any tools for this. You can just push it on by hand. Just make sure you get it even around there. also see it from the top side. Then wipe up your surface on the inside of here. This is the sealing surface. Also put a little grease on the cam here so it doesn't start out dry. And go ahead and reinstall the cam cap in this order, this facing. Should sit just like that. Grab our 2 nuts. Again, without dropping them. Make sure we tighten these down evenly. And our torque spec for those, I believe, is 15 foot-pounds. 15 foot-pounds, cam seals installed. Next, we're gonna clean up this water pump hole. You can see a little bit of rusting pitting inside of this one. Make sure you don't drop anything nasty inside there like mine. Fish it out of there. Use some Scotch-Brite or something. The O-ring seals around that surface. To install the water pump, it is positioned like around this way. This stud goes up, I believe. And then you can coat this with a little bit of silicone, or you can lube it up with grease or coolant if you trust the O-rings. Push it in straight, and these 10mm bolts will get torqued to 11 foot-pounds. The 2 new rollers can go on. This one is a 13mm. That gets torqued to 15 foot-pounds, and then the big one, it's a 16mm bolt. Good idea to use a little bit of Loctite on these spinning components. The 16mm goes down underneath the water pump. It is torqued to 33 foot-pounds. The new tensioner can go on here. This locking tab here has to line up with this hole in the timing cover. You can put a little Loctite on there. We will not tighten this down just yet. Here's all 3 of them installed. You can see the tab for this is in that groove. This nut is still loose because we will have to tension the belt. Here's the water pump. That idler. And then the big one is here. Now, you can go ahead and clean all this up. You want to get the oil and belt debris off of these gear cogs here. Make sure that there's no oil on them. Obviously, they're not going to slip because they're teeth, but just want to make sure everything's clean. Good practice when working on cars. A little bit of Loctite on this one. It's also 13mm. This one gets torqued to 15 foot-pounds as well. Okay, next we will rub the belt. Make sure our alignment marks are perfectly on here and as well as here. The belt routing is this. It is missing that little roller here. The flat sides of the belt obviously go on the non-geared, and then the geared part of the belt goes on here, water pump and the crank. Get the belt as tight as you can on this right side here, and then try to keep this injection pump in the middle of these bolt holes as we put this cam gear back on now. So all we need to do is pretty much get the belt routed like this, get as much tension we can on that right side, and then put our cam gear on. This does not matter how it goes on. There's no keyway, like I said. It's just a push fit on here, so make sure we clean this up. These, I have heard of them slipping, so I would recommend definitely maybe giving a little sandpaper inside of here, making sure it's clean, no oil or grease in there. And then put this on here, and try not to move the cam or the crank or anything else as you slide this on the belt, and then push it onto here and just start the bolt for now. Okay, now the time belt's on. Make sure your tension is on this side here, because we're going to tension this side. So make sure the belt is looser over here. So with snap ring pliers you can use, it's a little bit more tricky. These do like to snap off, but the toolkits are kind of expensive. So we will make sure this nut is loose. Make sure that the tab behind here is pushed into the backing plate. As you can see, it's in there, but this is still able to move. So just put your tool in here and tighten it to the right. I'll show you guys the marks on that once I have it tensioned properly. Now that our belt is tensioned properly, we can grab our cam hold down tool, or in this case a pry bar. Hold our cam gear right where it's at so it doesn't move one bit. Make sure we check our marks again. So marks on our cam, we're all good. Torque this bolt to the manufacturer torque spec is 33 foot-pounds, but a lot of people recommend going to around like 40 foot-pounds just because you can mitigate the chance of it slipping. So torque that down while holding it down, and then we'll check our marks one more time after that. Now we can go ahead and snug these 3 13mm bolts up. Again, make sure your drill bit is right around in the middle of your sprocket. If it's not, you might have to move the belt over a tooth either way on this pulley here. So tighten these 3 bolts, just snug them up for now because we're going to be loosening them a little bit later once the car starts. And then we will spin the engine over 2 full rotations of the crank and verify TDC one more time. So we snug those up, pull the drill bit out, and turn the engine clockwise 2 full rotations of the crank until you see your cam marks coming back to alignment. Make sure you remove the towels, make sure you're neutral. 2 full rotations, our pump lock fits perfectly. Our cam marks are perfectly on, and our crankshaft is aligned top dead center. You can reinstall the middle timing cover with the 110mm bolt up top. Clean them both up. You can now install the lower one with the 4 lower bolts. For the lower timing cover, it sits underneath the middle one, so it kind of has to slide underneath it. You can go ahead and clean this up and reinstall this dampener. This little mark here points up. For these bolts, the Allen bolts, these are going to take a little bit of blue Loctite, and they will be torqued to 18 foot-pounds. Now we can fish this bracket back down in there. 3 bolts, 16 mil, 33 foot-pounds. Next is our engine mount itself. We have the 2 bigger bolts are these 2, 74 foot-pounds, and then the 2 smaller bolts are 30 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. These are 16s. These, I believe, are 18s or 19s. You might have to move the engine a bit to get them to line up, raise it up or down. But once it lines up, you can just start them and tighten them evenly. Now we can go ahead and install our valve cover. Make sure you get most of the gasket material off here as you can. Clean it really good with brake clean so it's nice and dry. Same thing with the gasket on the valve cover. And then you can put a very, very light layer of RTV on the valve cover gasket, and then put a little dab in each corner where it's going to seal. So here, here, and then same place on the back sides. These bolts usually get torqued in an inch-pound torque setting, but for me I just go snug. You don't want to strip them obviously, but you want to have them tight, but just keep in mind they're pretty small bolts. So also make sure you check in there, make sure you have not dropped anything in there. Obviously just keep it clean. Valve cover's on, you can install your PCV hose. These bolts are 84 inch-pounds, by the way. Install your serpentine belt with the double wrench trick right here, 16 mil. You can see here is the routing underneath, and then obviously up top it will go around the power steering pump. Make sure it's fully on these. Install your intake tube with that 10mm that goes there. Make sure you clean and grease this O-ring a little bit, and you can even grease this if you want. Reinstall your power steering reservoir, and then your coolant ball, as well as this upper hose here. Leave the timing cover off for now. We will be adjusting the injection pump timing in VCDS once we are done. Very important. Pretty obvious at this point, but just reinstall your wheel, splash guard, then fill up your coolant, and you should be good to start. Make sure you turn your heat on full blast, and as your car is running, as it warms up, the coolant level will keep going down, so just keep it topped off. I'm flushing the system, hence why I'm using water. Now with the car running up to full operating temperature, we're gonna go ahead and go into VCDS, click engine, and then go to measuring blocks. Just do 0. Switch to basic settings, TDI timing, and then select your engine. Mine is the ALH, obviously. So to me, this one right here. And here is our injection timing. So we want to set this, right now I'm very advanced, so we want to be in between the green and the blue line, ideally right at the bottom of that section, so right above the blue line. So I'll show you guys how to set this. Alright, under the hood we need a 13mm and a 22mm. Ideally you want a long ratchet or breaker bar, just because the longer it is, the smaller movements you can make. With the 13mm, we're going to loosen these 3 nuts on the side of the injection pump, and then you will put your 22mm on that middle nut, and then to retard the timing you will go towards the firewall, and to advance the timing you will go towards the front of the car. Very, very small adjustments make a lot of change on VCDS. I'll get back to you guys. Okay, reminder, we're not taking these bolts out, we're just loosening the 3 13mm. I have my breaker bar on the 22mm, and we're just going to turn it ever so slightly. Then once you got that adjusted, go ahead and retighten the 13mm bolts. Alright, so with a little bit of trial and error, this is where I got it, this is where I'm going to keep it. This is pretty much ideal, right where you want it. Now that our pump is set, we can torque these down to 18 foot-pounds. Just like that, our TDI ALH timing belt is now fully changed. Make sure you check for leaks around your valve cover, everything you took off, obviously your water pump, and make sure you have your heat on, take it for a couple drives, make sure your coolant is topped up. That just goes to show you can do it without special tools, right in your garage at home. Thanks all for watching.